Hey, welcome to Integrated Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. How are you all today? Grab yourself a cup of coffee and let's sit down and talk for a minute about the possible end of the world as we know it. What am I talking about? Well, if you've been paying attention, and if you pay attention to this kind of stuff, or if you're one of our patrons over on Patreon, you're undoubtedly aware of the increasing solar activity. We're in the middle of a solar cycle 25, I believe. That was the last one I was aware of. Solar cycles are 11-year cycles, and the sun becomes more active, less active, and spouts off some of these, solar flares and CMEs and all that kind of stuff. And if you've been paying attention, you know that the sun has been a lot more active here recently. We've been having a lot of problems with our wireless internet, our phones, calls dropping, things like that, much more than we have in the past. And that's been going on for a couple of weeks, and I've posted some of those things over on Patreon site. But we have here what I haven't seen before, and an article hit up, and I have put this article over on Patreon for everyone to read after they get done with this, if they would like to. And whenever I put something over there, then I await for our resident expert, Hondo Bob, who is an expert. I'm not an expert on the science. I pretty much know what I'm talking about when it comes to preparing for it and surviving it, because I wrote a whole series of books on it. But I am not a scientist, and I don't know the science of this. And Hondo Bob does, and like I say, he is our scientist laureate over on Patreon. So I suggest that, and I'll be watching for his response to this, and I'm sure everybody else will too. Well, anyway, I'm going to read a little bit of this to you. It says, again, it's from the Washington Examiner. It says, Geomagnetic storm watch announced. And this is on August 16th. Now, I've never seen that before. Maybe they have, but as far as a storm watch being issued, that's kind of new to me. I'll read a little bit of the article, and we'll talk about it. And it is something to be taken seriously. It says something you should prepare for. So the article goes on, a geomagnetic storm watch will be in place until the end of the week due to the sun possibly affecting the weather. Well, I think it's going to affect a lot more than the weather, and I think they're going to say that down here. A recurrent coronal hole high-speed stream from the sun is expected to connect with Earth on Wednesday. That would be today, when a solar wind field is expected to create minor geomagnetic storm conditions, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA. Isn't it interesting that they came up with that acronym? I mean, it doesn't spell Noah like the biblical Noah, but it's still pronounced NOAA, right? Make of that what you will. They go on. Geomagnetic responses are likely to escalate to G3, or strong conditions, on 18 August, that would be Friday, due to the arrival at or near Earth of multiple coronal mass ejections, CMEs, that have departed the sun since August 14th, NOAA warned. Despite, and then they go on, and I'll post that over on Patreon so you can read the whole thing. There's been some unusual things from what a layman understands, in that there have been some surprises on how some of these solar flares and CMEs are coming out. Some are joining, and that may or may not be unusual. However, this is the thing to keep in mind. First off, get ready for this in case you experience anything from minor. I had trouble getting onto my online banking the other day. What if something happens and you can't get into your online banking or bill pay or whatever like that for a couple of days? Like I always say, always have cash on you. This might be. I'm going to read something so that people kind of understand. because a lot of people, most people are interested in EMPs and CMEs. Most people don't have a real deep knowledge of it, or even a working knowledge of it. There are other channels who have tried to kind of, and I don't mean that in a demeaning way at all, who have covered this to the extent of their knowledge, and I think that that's good, because the more that we can increase, not only, well, at least the possibility of this, even if you don't get into full understanding, the better that it is. However, I wrote a whole series on this, as many of you know, and so I want to read just something from the preface in my second book, The Revival. And maybe I should say, maybe this is a good time to say, hey, this video is brought to you, regardless of what other ads you may see, by the Stonemont series, my books. 5 books, a 5-book series on preparing for, surviving, and rebuilding after a CME. How about that? Just happened to be right. The reason that I wrote them is because there was a lot of misunderstanding out there, a lot of false information about what would happen with CMEs. And these are kind of, they're a novel, they're a story about people, about community, about survival, about preparedness, but they really are a text about exactly how to prepare for this, and how to get through it. So again, this is a preface from The Revival. I'm going to read just a couple of paragraphs, and then we'll talk about it more, what to do, what to get ready for. On September 1 and 2, 1859, a solar coronal mass ejection, or CME, struck the Earth's magnetosphere, causing a geomagnetic storm witnessed around the globe. The northern aurora was seen as far as southern Mexico. So this is what I'm reading from right there. As far as Mexico, and the southern as far north as Australia. Gold miners awakened in the middle of the night to prepare breakfast, thinking it was daytime, and telegraph systems across America and Europe failed, shocking operators and setting papers on fire. Observed and documented by amateur British astronomer Richard Carrington, it was dubbed the Carrington Event. If a Carrington class, and there are different classes of CMEs, but here's the thing, if a Carrington class CME struck Earth today, it could destroy all electrical grids and electronic components worldwide. We would immediately be back in a world without electricity. A nuclear-induced electromagnetic pulse, or EMP, would have the same effect in the affected area. In either case, the EMP Commission, that was back in the early 2000s, estimates that 90% of those in affected areas would be dead within 1 year from starvation, disease, accidents, and the violence that accompanies the collapse of societies. Now here's the kicker. How probable is this? In their 2012 report, the American Geophysical Union projected a 12% chance that a Carrington-class CME would strike the Earth within the next decade. The chance of a nuclear-induced EMP attack from one of our global enemies, we have no way to know. There was another thing that I didn't include in the preface here, and that was that they have estimated, those who know, which means not me, but scientists, those who know, whose opinion I must go by, have said that when they go back in time, however they test this, that one of these Carrington-class CMEs strikes the Earth about every 150 years. So last one happened in 1859. We're overdue. Yeah, I mean within the window. And like they said there, they project a 12% chance per decade of one of these striking Earth. So, you know, during that decade, I guess this was 2012. We're at the end of that, 2022, right? If it doesn't happen now, I suppose there would be an increased chance. Mathematicians might argue with me saying, no, it means 12% every decade. Others would say, well, it means that if you didn't get one the first decade, you kind of have a greater chance the next decade. So it's just going to go on and on and on. What is the truth of this, and what should you do about it? And as I said, I'm not going to talk about the science. I'm going to because if you want to know that. And that's one of the reasons, if you're not on our Patreon channel, you should be. I wish you would be. It's only $1 a month, and for that you can get everything here, but you get some real expert advice, like Hondo Bob, I'm sure, will be putting some information over there on this. And for those who really want to go beneath the surface, you know, that's what that's for. What would happen? You can imagine, I mean, my books detail, for those of you, those stone mounters out there, which is we call the people that have read all the books. And so I'll look forward to seeing your all's comments in here. Know how to prepare for it and kind of what to expect. Would we, and there's this misconception that this would kick us back to the Stone Age. Well, no, it wouldn't. It would just kick us back to pre-electricity, which is about 1840s, okay, or 1850s. And the reason that it's not, it wouldn't be as bad as the Stone Age, is because while it might knock out all of our electronics, all electricity, you know, the power, it would take down the power grids everywhere. And that doesn't mean that that some things won't work. It doesn't mean that some of your electronics or your car might not work. There's great argument about that. And the reason that there is because it hasn't happened in today's world, that they make projections on the basis of some experiments that they've run. But, you know, the things you do in the lab or the things that you do in the committee room sometimes vary greatly from what you find when you get out in the real world. So while this may take down all of our structure, our infrastructure, our electrical infrastructure, you know, some vehicles might run, okay, and they'll run as long as you've got fuel for them. So if you have some stored fuel, for instance, you'll be able to run your vehicles for a while. But if the gas tanks at the gas stations, everything's shut down, how are you going to get more? Okay. Now there's ways to do that. This isn't the way. This isn't what to talk about. This isn't the place to talk about that. I talk about that in the books. You get detailed everything about what to do in here in the form of an adventure story with people that you like, some you don't like, and guess what? The people that you don't like will be taken care of by the people you do. But it takes us back to pre-electricity. You know, a lot of people lived good lives before electricity. A lot of people didn't, but just like today, a lot of people live well, a lot of people don't. It's just pretty much up to you. But the reason that it wouldn't take us back, you know, to an insurmountable place is that while we may lose the electrical infrastructure, we would not lose the knowledge that we have. Now, we'd lose all the knowledge that's on your electronics devices, so if everything that you know is on your computer, you know, you're in bad shape. Things you have in hard form in books are what you've printed out, and that's why you should print out all of your preparedness and survival material you're going to have. So it would take us back. Now, how much should we worry about this? Well, we should worry a little bit and a lot. And let's start with the a lot, because when this thing happens, and scientists assure us that it's going to, the CME, it's going to, it will happen. You know the old saying, and I hate the saying, but I'll use it here. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, right? Well, it is a matter of when. That's exactly right. It's gonna happen. If you're not preparing for it, why not? If you're really interested, if you're really serious about preparedness, that is the thing you should be preparing for. That should be the one thing you're preparing for, because, as I've always said, if you're prepared for that, you're prepared for pretty much anything. That's what I prepare for. And all these little things that have come across our plate over the last few years, I didn't notice. Why? Because, hey, I'm prepared for the big one. Now, I know that it can be daunting to prepare for the big one, especially if you're beginning at zero. Don't be concerned. Just get started. You know, I used to tell, I've trained a lot of people in a lot of things. I've said that before in my life. And most of the things that I trained were fairly complicated, took a long time to master. But I told people, there's 2 parts to a job. There's only 2 parts to a job. Only 2 parts. Let's simplify it. Getting started and keeping going until you accomplish, until the job is done. Those are the 2 parts. Now, the hardest for a lot of people is the first part, getting started. You know that old saying, the longest journey begins with a single step? Well, that's true. Take that step. If you haven't started yet, if you're just kind of coming by and go, I don't know, maybe should I not? Yes, you should. First off, you should. And go out. If you're one of those starting at ground zero, go out today and buy some Progresso soup or some beanie weenies or some rice or some pasta or something like that and get started. Go back, for you beginners, go back to some of my very first videos. You can go up there somewhere and say, go from oldest to newest, something like that. My second or third one was I think, getting ready for an EMP. And then the next one was food. How to get started with stocking food. Those are the important things. Now, I'm not going to get into the rule of 3s and all that on this, because for the most part, this is for people who have already begun and understand that stuff. If you want to know the rule of 3s, go back there. So you should worry a lot, because when it happens, it's going to happen. I mean, everything is going to be gone. Everything, your modern way of life is going to be gone, and you're going to have what you have. It's not a matter of going out, making one last trip to the store. There's not going to be one last trip to the store unless you're, going to be going down there and fighting all the other looters for whatever's left at the Piggly Wiggly. So you're going to have what you have. That's a great encouragement to have more, isn't it? How much should we worry? A little. Okay, that was a lot. Now a little. Should we worry about this one? There's no way to know. And that's the thing. I'm not going to tear my hair out over this thing. But as I've always said, there is no way to know. And when any of these things come along, it is an excellent opportunity to use it as a drill. Now, they've told us that this storm is reaching us anytime between Wednesday and Friday. They say that it can disrupt communications. It can disrupt, there was a list down there and somewhere of all the other things that they expect this to disrupt. What if, this is the big one, you should operate over the next 2 days as if this was the big one coming and you know it. That's what you should do. Now, should you go out there and max out all your credit cards getting stuff? No. That would be financially irresponsible. Okay? Within your means, which means don't let it create a financial hardship for you. Okay? Within your means, be prepared. Get prepared. Use this as a drill. Look at what you may have a hole. What are you weak in? Tighten that up. I could use some more of this or that. Go get it. Go get it if you can afford it. Now, there's one thing that I do suggest to people, and I know in the preparedness world, there are a lot of people who hold to very, very basic what is that Ramsey's guy's name? The Ramsey. Anyway, he's the guy he's the financial guy. Got into real estate, went broke, and dug himself out, and now he has a radio show. Dave Ramsey, that's it. And he puts on programs. The guy's made millions of dollars. He's come back helping people who have gotten into the same problems that he got himself into, right? And there's a lot of followers of him, and he's a good guy. He's obviously made a success of himself, and I think his heart's in the right place, and he's trying to help people. I don't necessarily agree with everything that he says, especially from a preparedness standpoint. Now, he is preparing you to go along as if everything is going to be just fine until the second coming, and I'm all for that because I'm a believer in that. But from a preparedness standpoint, I want to point out something with which I disagree as far as what he preaches. He says don't use any credit. And I know right now, because in the preparedness world, there's a lot of people say very basic, don't borrow money, whatever like that. And most of them, of course, have mortgages on their houses and, whatever. Or, pay so little for their vehicles that, hey, you wouldn't want to take a long trip in it. But here's the thing. If you don't have, say, a means of protection, okay, a rifle, or whatever you need to protect, if you don't have that, first off, why not? Because that should be very basic. Now, there are people, and I just had this question in, was it yesterday's video? Might have been the day before, something like that. And it said, well, I'm really on a tight budget, buying a weapon. Oh, I think it was about the ones when I said buy guns. Go back and watch that if you want. And now is the time. I really can't do that. It's not in my budget, but what would be your advice for somebody who cannot or doesn't have the financial ability? Well, I used to teach classes in environmental weapons. And if you can't have a gun, get a hammer. I mean, get a butcher knife and a hammer and get a bunch of them and get a handsaw. And there's all sorts of things that you can have with you that just look like tools. And they'll serve you better than these, right? Not nearly as good as a gun, but they'll serve you, better than nothing. But for those of you who have the ability, if you have, here's going to be the big, oh no. If you don't have a rifle, why would you not go out? And if you don't have the cash for it, maybe you're saving up, you got $300, right? And you can buy a rifle for, $600. Why would you not go out and put your $300 cash down for it and put the rest on a credit card that you can then make the payments for over the next however long? I mean, pay it off as soon as you can. If you can pay it off, and maybe you've been putting $100 a month back. Okay, if you can afford that $100 a month, you can pay off that credit card in 3 months. And then you have that rifle for the 3 months. What if something happens during that 3 months you need it? Okay, what if this is the big one Friday? I don't know. Now, I am not telling you to be financially irresponsible. I am telling you to be preparedness responsible, or survival responsible. Okay. And if don't anybody come on here and say that's just because you don't know what you're talking about. So if that's within your possibility, I would highly suggest doing it. Okay, now, know what you're doing. I'm going to make another one about the importance of training, because there's just far too many people out there that have guns and aren't trained in them, and that's important. So anyway, use this as a drill. They've told us this is coming. The scientists assure us that the big one is coming. We don't know when that's going to be. To the best of your ability, tighten up. Like I say, assume it's Friday. Do I think it's going to be Friday? No, I don't. I'll be honest with you. I don't. But, that's because we're playing the odds, right? But the odds will eventually get you. So I think that's what I wanted to talk about today. I would suggest, like I said, I'm going to put that over on the Patreon site. If you're not with us on Patreon, I always put the link down here below. It's in the information section, and and I usually put a pinned comment with that. The first thing that you'll see there, I think, is how to get to the Patreon channel. Come on over. You can read the articles. You can see and we always have other people over there that will post links, because you can post links over there, and it's very helpful. Hondo Bob, I'm sure, will tell us something about it as soon as he sees it. Some of the other patrons who keep up on this stuff will be posting more links to more information. You cannot post links on YouTube, at least on my channel. Don't. Okay. And I'll sneak in something else here. I know that some people have done it well-meaningly, I think, but don't promote other channels on here, okay? Even if they're good channels, I may not be aware. If I want to promote another channel, I will. So I'll just leave it at that. And also, I remember it's brought to you by the Stonemont series, the series of books that I read about preparing for and surviving this very situation. It's about preparing, surviving, and rebuilding afterwards in a way that gives you a quality of life, because integrative preparedness is not just about surviving. You know, surviving is no fun. I mean, just surviving sucks. It can be real uncomfortable. You know the old saying, that which does not kill me makes me stronger? Well, I have a saying, actually, which I put in one of these books, and that is, that which does not kill me usually hurts like hell. And it does. Make you stronger? Yeah, maybe, you know. Sometimes it makes you more careful. But you don't want to just survive. You want to be able to rebuild. You want to live a life that is a quality of life. And the basics of integrative preparedness is to prepare ourselves now, to be able to to survive and live well without all of the external systems, interconnected systems that can go down at any time, and over which we have little or no control, and still be able to live a quality life. And that everything that we do as we prepare not only prepares us for a future catastrophe, but improves the quality of our life today. So if you haven't gotten it, I suggest that you do get them. The link down there is also how to get these either through Amazon, or you can get them from me, autographed copies. There's a way to do that too. So keep that in mind. Come over to Patreon, think about it, prepare, use this as a drill, and remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. So do it, all right? Hey, I look forward to, I'm going to go out and tighten up. I'm not sure what I can tighten up on. I'm just going to kind of make a mental review and go out and water the garden and do my daily stuff and go back to writing on the 6th book. And so it'll be a good day. I hope you all have one too, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.